you wanted the best, you've got the best podcast, the hottest podcast in the world. The Chris Voss Show, the preeminent podcast with guests so smart you may experience serious brain bleed. The CEOs, authors, thought leaders, visionaries, and motivators. Get ready. Strap yourself in. Keep your hands, arms, and legs inside the vehicle at all times, because you're about to go on a monster education roller coaster with your brain. Now, here's your host, Chris Voss.
Hi folks, it's Voss here from thechrisvossshow.com. Welcome to the big show. We certainly appreciate it. As always, Chris Voss Show is a fan who loves you but doesn't judge you, at least not as harshly as probably the rest of the world does. We love everybody, and we're trying to make the world better, and we're trying to make people better. So what better mission can we have? And it's free for those of you in the audience. You can take and listen in as much as you want. You can even play them multiple times, and it's free. Go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, LinkedIn.com/Chris Voss, Chris Voss 1, the TikTok, and Chris Voss, Facebook.com. Opinions expressed by guests on the podcast are solely their own and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the host or the Chris Voss Show. Some guests of the show may be advertising on the podcast, but it is not an endorsement or review of any kind. Today we have an amazing young lady on the show. We're going to be talking about her new book, and it is entitled, Allow Me to Live My Grief and Heal from the Inside Out. Mrs. Ligia Houben is on the show with us today, and we'll be talking about her book, her insights, her experience, her life's journey, and how you can learn from it. She's a leading grief and loss expert, educator, and author of 4 books on grief. With over 2 decades of experience, she has guided thousands in navigating loss through her transformative approach. The 11 Principles of Transformation, first introduced in her book, Transform Your Loss, Your Guide to Strength and Hope, has been widely recognized for its impact in the field of grief support. This methodology was presented to mental health professionals in the seminar Transforming Grief and Loss in over 100 cities nationwide. Her work bridges cultural and emotional understanding, notably reflected in her book, Counseling Hispanics Through Loss, Grief, and Bereavement. She's been featured on CNN, Espanol, Univision, CBS, NPR. Her latest book is Heal from the Outside, is a heartfelt tribute to her centenarian mother. Wow. 100 years. Gotta love it. She seeks to validate and accompany grievers through this deeply personal book and offers powerful strategies and tools to support the healing journey. Welcome to the show. How are you?
Thank you so much, Chris. I am so honored to be in your show. Thank you for this opportunity.
And we're honored to have you. Give us your .coms. How can people find you on the interwebs?
Yes, it's my name and last name. I'm going to spell it out. It's LIGIAHOUB as in boy, EN.com.
There you go. So give us a 30,000 overview. What's inside this new book?
The new book, as you mentioned, is a tribute to my beloved centenarian mother. It's allow me to live my grief and heal from the inside out. The reason that I call the book Allow Me to Live My Grief is because, Chris, we live in a society that sometimes doesn't allow us to grieve. People want to take us away from the pain, and they do it with their best intention. You know, they tell us to be strong, to move on, all those comments that people make. The thing is that they don't really help us, because then if we do not grieve really, from the inside out, then we may stay stuck. And that's why I chose to name my book that way, because being specialist, in grief for so many years, and being my mom a centenarian, when I would say, that yes, she died and that I missed her and all that, people would say, Ligia, but you should be happy. She was centenarian. Yeah. And I understand, Chris. I understand. It was a blessing. And I was so grateful, to have her after losing my father when I was 12, which was that was inspiration for me to get into this world of helping the bereaved, the griever. However, what about the void? What about missing her? And on the other hand, people would say, Ligia, but you are an expert. You created that methodology of the 11 principles of transformation. So how can you be grieving? Use your methods, no? And then I would respond to people who have come to the seminars and have read the book and all that. I would say, do you remember principle number 2, second principle? That is live your grief. So that's what I'm doing, living my grief. So that's how the title came to be.
There you go. I love it. You know, the one thing I learned through the hard way through losing family members and dogs, was the process of grief is an important process. The steps, what is it, like 8 stages or something you go through with grief? And it's important just to embrace it. You know, you can try and live in denial. You can try and, you know, come up with some way, or you can say, you know, I'm over it. It's fine. It's not affecting me. But, you know, learning to, you know, value the process of grief and how we heal is an important process, I think, in the healing phase. And we have to go through it, because if you don't, you just end up bottling it up. I mean, I met people that, you know, I talked about my dog's grief, or when I lost my dog, and wrote about it on Facebook, and I was just stunned at how many people wrote me back and said, wow, I never processed my dog's death, my parents' death, the child's death, et cetera, et cetera. I never fully processed it. I kind of blocked it out. And when I saw you cathartically going through your experience and sharing it, I realized I hadn't gone through it. Now I'm starting to go through it. And, you know, I've just kind of learned that when loss happens, or grief has to be processed, and the stages of it, just do it, embrace it, run with it, because it's the only way to heal, really.
And see how beautiful, Chris. That's one of the beauties, actually, now of social media, because as you open your heart, and you showed your vulnerability, no, in showing your grief, then you gave other people, quote unquote, permission for them to share as well. Because you know what? One of the beauties with grief is it is so sacred, and it needs to be witnessed, you know, shared with others. So you sharing your grief, others did as well. So that's something that bring us together, you know, as a community, because that's what happens. You know, we grieve together, we heal together.
There you go. And your book, you know, you've written 4 books about this, correct? Just want to...
Yes.
Yeah, there you go. And on your website, you help people with different things of that nature. Now, in this book, it's kind of a homage to your mother, an honorarium of your mother and her life and your experience with her and the loss that you experienced?
Actually, yes, because when she died, and she lived with us in her last 2 years of her life. And we were extremely close because, as I shared, I lost my father when I was 12. I'm from Nicaragua. You know, you heard my accent, Hispanic accent. Yes. And I'm from Nicaragua, living in Miami. And when I was 12, I was living in Nicaragua. My father died suddenly. It was, you know, sudden death. And I'm the youngest of 3 women. And I was extremely close to my father, you know. So it was really hard. And then my mom was my father and mother for 48 years, you know. And what happened was that I was very, very close to her. We were very close. So when she died, the grief was intense, you know, the void, because it's like every day. It's a constant, you know, every day. So it was very strong. And it's when I decided, you know, and I have kept like a journal, you know, throughout the process. You know, she was old and all that. So writing on a journal. So I put together my thoughts, my feelings, my emotions. And I wanted to share with the world that even if I have, you know, if I'm a thanatologist and have devoted my life to help the griever, I am human. And I have my emotions. I wanted to be raw, you know, open to people. Yes, I am grieving, and that's okay. So I shared, you know, the beginnings, you know, how it was and all that. And at the same time, the way I did it, I wrote with my heart, Chris. I did with my heart. And a lot of love. And it intertwined. I share with the reader tips, suggestions. Because when I say allow me to live my grief, it doesn't mean allow me to stay stuck in grief, right?
Yeah.
It's no, let's live, let's do this together. You're reading this and it's like I'm talking to you. And that's what I've heard. And I'm so grateful with people that they say, they send you the text and all those things. No, say, Ligia, I feel if you're talking to me. Because the book, I wrote it first in Spanish, 2022, and the one in English came last year. And I also did the audiobook in Spanish. I narrated it last year. And it was a beautiful thing because it's like I'm talking to the person, no? So that was the reason, to share my story, present myself raw as human, because I believe in humanity. I believe in being vulnerable. For me, being vulnerable is not a weakness. It's a strength if you can share with others, no? And also I give a lot of tools, a lot of strategies, how to cope with grief, how to transform it even, and then how to continue honoring your loved one.
Can you tease out one of the strategies? People need to buy the book to get, of course, the details. But can you tease out to us maybe one or two strategies that you recommend in the book?
One of the things that I feel helps a lot is writing. It's writing down how you feel. Being this, either keeping a journal. Do you journal by any chance, Chris?
I kind of use Facebook as a journal. I talk about some of the things I think, and so kind of.
Awesome. Yes, absolutely. And, doing some journaling, you can write letters to your loved one. One technique, actually, which is extremely, extremely powerful is, and I learned this at the university, actually, is when you write a letter to your loved one, and then you write another letter, like if your loved one responded back to you. We do that, like when I told you, that I learned this at the university. I studied at the University of Miami, I studied psychology. It was interesting because we did a technique called Gestalt. It's the empty chair. I don't know, have you ever heard about that?
No, tell us about that.
Super interesting because there are two chairs, and it's interesting that the professor said, okay, who wants, volunteers? I'm going to show this. And I volunteered. No, okay. I went there. I didn't know what I was going to do because what he did was, okay, you sit in on one chair, and then to the empty chair, imagine that, there's someone that you have an unfinished business, maybe, lost loved one, someone that you want to say something. And of course, I thought about my father because my father died here in Miami and I was living in Nicaragua. It was a sudden death, as I said. So that was so powerful. It was extremely strong. But then when you do that, then you change the seat and you go to the other seat, like if you are your loved one or the person, that you were talking to before, that person responds to you. Wow. So very, very powerful. And I always suggest, if people are going to do that, always, with a professional, a therapist, a coach, because people can get very emotional, but it is a very powerful technique. So it's very similar to the one with letters, writing and responding. Now, you can also, I work a lot with our thoughts, to pay attention to our thoughts, because the griever, it's very common that we go to all the what ifs. What if, this, and what if that? And we go to all the things we didn't do. And then that feeling of guilt arises, and to pay attention to our thoughts. Because based on how we think, we feel. And based on how we feel, we act. So as we change our thoughts, we can change how we feel. So I suggest, I give a lot of, prompts in the book, but I say a lot this: we can move from a place of suffering to a place of honoring with love. So it's a shift of the mindset, it's a shift. And at the beginning, it can be challenging, of course. However, we can practice it, and we can even become a master, in doing that.
There you go. I've shared over the years my stories of loss. I've lost a couple dogs since my first one. But yeah, I remember writing I was a bit half bottle in vodka and was pouring out my feelings over the loss of my dog that had just kind of happened just instantly within 30 minutes and she was gone. And so writing this big thing, I remember thinking, I've talked about this before on the show. I remember thinking, God, this is really selfish. Me, and complaining about my troubles. I'm sure the world's got something bigger on its mind. But I just kind of poured my stream of thought into it and my feelings and what it was like. And I wanted to capture the moment at the time. Like I say, I use Facebook for my journal. The Facebook's kind of nice as a journal because it goes around and gives you reminders. This is what you were doing a year ago. This is what you were doing 10 years ago.
Yes.
It's kind of handy that way. It's kind of like a journal that reminds you of what you were thinking in the past. And then it has pictures and videos.
I know.
But so you help people now deal with this. You've written 4 books on loss and grief and things. Tell us about some of the offerings you have on your website. I see there's the grief program, which is the 11 principles of transformation, and some other things here. Talk to us about some of those offerings.
Yes, and the 11 principles, and I'll tell you how they came to be. The first book I wrote on grief, it's Transform Your Loss, Your Guide to Strength and Hope. Mm-hmm. And when I was writing that, I'm talking about what's dedicated to my father's memory. And it's, what losses are because, and I learned that from people because when I would say, I work with people who went through loss, they would assume that it was only the bereaved, only when we lose a loved one. But we go through so many losses, Chris. Oh, yeah. So many losses, loss of health, loss of a job, divorce, a breakup, loss of homeland for us Hispanics, moving, downsizing. I mean, there's so many types of losses, no? So I wrote that book and I talk about what losses are, how grief is manifested, because it doesn't manifest only through our emotions, through being sad or angry or guilty. No, but it can also be manifested physically, with migraines, insomnia, overeating, not eating, all those things, stomachache, backache at times. And socially, we may get isolated. We don't want to see people. On the other hand, we may be just all and about, going out. You cannot be at home because you feel lonely. Or also the spiritual aspect. And I don't say it religious aspect. I say it spiritual. Because you can be spiritual without being religious. Yep. And on top, if you are religious, then you are spiritual as well. And the thing is that spirituality is very broad. And I talk about, the ability to find meaning, the ability to keep hope. All those things are spiritual. Now, when I was writing that book, and it has 60 real stories of losses, the book, half of them, 30 about the loss of a loved one, but then the other ones, as I said, different ones, including the loss of an animal companion, as you said, with your, beloved dog. So what happened was that I said, but I want to give something to the reader. I want to give something. And that's when I came to create the methodology of the 11 principles. And I just started writing, Chris, writing, and I stopped. And I'm like, there were 11 for me, because you know how it is when we find meaning that is unique to you, things that happen. And when I stopped and I count them, I'm like, oh, wow, how beautiful. Because my father died on 11/11.
Oh, really?
Back in 1971. And I was like, and it was not on purpose. It was not that it just happened. And I was, that's so fulfilled. I don't know, so touched by that. And the 11 principles is the methodology that I introduced in that book. And from that methodology is offered as seminars, as coaching programs, as an online program. I work with people throughout 12 weeks. The online program is 12 weeks as well. Right now it's a self-paced. but this year I'm going to do it like a 3 months with me. So besides the self-paced, I'm going to be with a person every week. So we do kind of a group coaching, but at the same time, a little didactic, to teach people about grief, because I feel that it's important we know about grief in order to know how to cope when things happen to us, because they will happen to us. So that's basically the 11 principles, and that's the seminar that I brought to over 100 cities, actually, or 108 actually, nationwide, with PESI for mental health professionals. It was such a beautiful experience, that, Chris. So
there you go.
That's
wonderful. That's wonderful. Now you also have a podcast too, as well.
I do, yes. And I want to say that all my products, my services, they are bilingual, obviously, in Spanish and in English. The principles, the online program, English and Spanish, the books, most of them, because I have 2 books which are not in Spanish. Mm-hmm. One is Counseling Hispanics Through Loss, Grief, and Bereavement. This book is with Springer, and that the intention of that book is geared for mental health professionals which are not Hispanics, so they understand my culture, so they understand, people living here in the United States specifically, so they can understand us. And the other one is a workbook that was born out of the seminar. When I was doing the seminar with PESI, they came to watch me, doing the seminar and all that, and they liked it a lot. And they proposed to me if I wanted to create a workbook on the principles with a lot of activities for each principle. So I wrote it. That has been received also. So those 2 books are only in English. But Transform Your Loss and Allow Me to Live My Grief, those 2, which are self-help basically, are also in Spanish.
There you go.
Yeah.
So multilingual, everybody can get in on the action and the knowledge and how to deal with all this stuff. Now, you also do some speaking as well, and coaching for meditation, hypnosis, life transitions, grief coaching, grieving employees. I mean, imagine that's probably important for if I've had companies where someone died and everyone's grieving there, different losses, divorce, identity, aging parents, inner self. Talk to us about some of these coaching offerings you have.
Okay. And I didn't respond before. I'm sorry, because I went into the bilingual thing about the podcast you asked me, because the podcast is bilingual also. And it's called Transforming Grief, in Spanish, Transformando el Duelo. So it's the same message, and it's audio right now. It's not a video yet, but it's like short messages, Chris, between, let's say, 8 to 15 minutes, to the point. So every week I upload, an episode to the point. And last week was my 100th episode.
Oh, congratulations.
Yes. Thank you. I was so excited.
People don't make it. I mean, 99% of podcasts never make it to that far.
Oh, wow. I was so excited with it. And so it's, to the point, and you can see the titles, different aspects of grief, no? So people can choose, I may want to listen to this, so that's why I chose it, I chose to do it like that. Mm-hmm. Now, when you talk about the other aspects of my services, aging parents, older adults are my passion. I love them. I am a gerontologist. Yes, that's a study of aging. Okay. And I did a program on that at the university as well. And I believe that can be a loss, of course, the loss of youth, the process itself. It depends how we take it. It depends if we continue finding meaning as we age, finding new purposes. That's very important. And when we talk about taking care of our aging parents, that is a transition, Chris. Mm-hmm. That is, as you may know, I don't know your story, but as you may know, and it is a transition. Mm-hmm. And I love to guide adult children in that transition, having had the experience, of course, not only professionally, that I studied that and I worked with older adults in adult daycare centers and all that. No, I took care of my mom. I bring a lot of my personal story in my work to my work. And so I believe that's extremely important, to talk about that transition, including including moving them, from their home that maybe they lived for 50 years. Now they need to move them either to a small apartment, smaller, or to an ALF, sometimes a nursing home, how that transition is for the children, how it's for the older adults. It depends how we take it, how we handle it. It can make a huge difference. So that's something that is very close to my heart, to help people in that transition, and also the changes. Something that I used to give talks about, not lately, but I used to before, like maybe 10 years ago, on Alzheimer's. Alzheimer's and spirituality, because cognitively they're not there. That's a loss. For children, that's a huge loss, because that is a type of loss we call ambiguous. It is ambiguous because the person physically is still with us. However, cognitively, they're not there. So that can be a very strong loss. So all these things, I do it with my heart. Yeah.
There you go. And you help other people and get it done. So anything more we need to cover before we go out? Did we get everything covered?
Yes, and you mentioned that I do meditation, I do hypnosis, I am a hypnotherapist, and I teach meditation. I believe that those are techniques, practices that can help us a lot. Meditation helps us, to be mindful, to connect, to slow down, to slow down, to get centered. I believe it helps us a lot. And when we talk about mindfulness, actually, there's a beautiful book, and I know the author, he's awesome. The book is called Grieving Mindfully. So we go mindfully to our grieving process. We don't rush it. We stay present, When we do meditation, I do it on different topics, from being grateful to forgiveness to healing, all those things. And hypnosis, it's a beautiful, beautiful tool, technique to help people heal, to help people achieve things they want to achieve. Because it's not that you make them forget. Sometimes people say, "No, Ligia, please help me to forget this. I cannot delete. I wish I did. I cannot." We can reframe it. We can see it under a different light. Yeah.
There you go. So as we go out, give people a pitch to have them pick up your book, onboard, how to reach out to you, find out more, handshake with you on your website, over email or phone calls, and .coms, where you want people to find you on the interwebs.
Okay, thank you, Chris. To all of you, thank you for being here. It's wonderful to share with you this topic that is so close to my heart. If you are going through the loss of a loved one, I send you a hug with all my love. And remember that your loved one continues living in your heart, because love is eternal. And I share my message in different platforms. I am on Instagram, Ligia_Houben. On Facebook, I have a page. I'm also on LinkedIn, TikTok, and in Twitter, not much, but I am there a little bit now. It's X. But I have my website, LigiaHoubEN.com. I have a YouTube channel as well. And my phone number is 305-299-5370. Thank you for that, Chris, for that opportunity.
Thank you, and thanks for coming on the show and, letting people know you got to deal with these grief things. It's so important, because if you don't, you're gonna carry that a long ways, as I think the Beatles said. You carry that weight a long ways. Anyway, guys, thank you for coming on the show. We really appreciate it, Ms. Houben, and thank you. And thanks, Monis, for tuning in. Go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, LinkedIn.com/Chris Voss, Chris Voss 1 on the TikTok and all those crazy places on the internet. Be good to each other. Stay safe. And I'll see you guys next time. And that should have a